So we figured out that if we take out a $300,000 loan for this expansion and our interest rate, our annual rate's 8.5%, and we're paying back 4 times a year, we're going to pay $1,800,569 every quarter for 5 years, 20 payments in all. Okay. Now there are a lot of corporations and a lot of accounting people who want to know this column right here, the interest payments, because as you know, if you own a house, you get to write off a certain portion of the interest that's associated with that loan payment. So she wants to know, her accountant wants to know, well, what's our interest payment going to be here so I know how much I can write off for tax purposes. And I also love this section because for you young kids, this is a way for me to show you don't get caught in the trap that a lot of people get caught in. I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. Okay, so we're going to start here. We're going to start a little schedule that says in the first payment we make, the first year, the first payment we make on this principal of $300,000, how much is going to go to interest and how much is going to go to principal? Okay, because these are going to change. As we get lower, the interest payment will reduce and the principal payment will increase. If you look at page 500, figure 9.7, it shows that. It shows that this number here, the interest payment is going to be high initially, but it's going to go down lower and lower once the principal starts to drop. And you'll see that. I guess the best way to do it is just go ahead and do it. So let's go ahead and begin. We're going to be on page 501. And it says go to C9 and type in $300,000. Well, I can do that, or I can also just reference A5, which is fine. You do what you want. I just like to reference A5 because a lot of times if we change this and we're playing around, this changes, and that's a pretty good thing. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go to the interest payment, and this is pretty simple because all the variables I need are right up here. Okay, and you'll notice that the formula is equals IPMT. So if you look at what that means, remember we did payment up here. This is what the payment is. The IPMT returns the interest payment for a given period for an investment. Okay, so I'm going to double click on this. I'll get my dialog box up here. The rate is not B5. It's not 8.5 or the annual rate. It is a quarterly rate. Okay, then we're going to go to the number of periods, and this is where it gets kind of funny. Okay, we're actually going to go over here to B9. Okay, this is the period number. It's not the number of periods, but what period is it? This is the first period, and when I go to number of periods, then I'm going to go back up here to F5. Okay, so what we're saying here is we're going to start with D5, which is the rate, and then this is period 1 of a 20 period loan payment, and the present value is going to be nothing more than A5, or I can put in C5, C9, doesn't matter, but A5. Okay, well now I have a couple of things to do before I click on OK, because what I want to do is, you can tell, is I'm going to copy this down. This is a formula I'm going to copy down. So there are some things that I don't want it to leave. I don't want it to leave D5 because D5 is my rate. I always want it to be able to reference D5, so I press F4. B9 though, it's going to be here. Now I want it to go down to B10, then B11, then B12. I want it to go down because that's the period, the current period that we're paying on. So I'm not going to reference this one. Okay, the number of periods, clearly I want to anchor it there. I never want you to leave F5. And the present value, I want you to stay in A5. So we are going to absolute cell reference that one. Okay. So now I press OK. Okay. What this is saying is of this first payment that we're going to make, this $1,800,569 we're going to make in the first quarter of the first year, $6,375 of it goes to principal, or goes to the interest. Okay, it doesn't go against the principal. All right. So If this amount goes to the principal, or to the interest, then this less this goes to the principal. Well, let's figure that out. I can easily just go equals G5 minus D9, but we're not going to do it that way because, well, we're just not. Okay. So now we're going to type in equals P, PMT, returns the payment on the principal for a given investment based on periodic constant payment. Double click. Get my dialog box up, and again, my rate is D5, and I know it's going to be anchor, so let's anchor it there. Okay, now we got D1, or I'm sorry, B9, which is the first period. Number of periods, I want it anchored, and then my present value, I want that anchored. Press OK. I'm hoping that those two together, added together, comes up with this number. And I think it does. Okay, so this is going to equal this number plus this number. And sure enough, it does. So let's recap. What this means is simply that on my first payment that I make, this number, this $6,375 will go to interest. It won't go against the principal. Okay, let's show you what that means. I'm going to hurry through this. Not hurry through. I've only got about 8 minutes to go. I want to get through this next couple sections. Okay, we're going to complete the amortization schedule. Here's how we're going to do this. We're going to go to C10. And because I started with $300,000, when I make my first payment, this is going to come off the principal. Okay, so I'm going to start with a positive number. This is going to equal this number, C9, plus a negative number, which was a payment. There. So after my first payment that I make, my principal will reduce down to $287,805. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is copy this and this down. I believe that's what it wants me to do. Copy the range D9 to F9. Yep, D9 to F9. Copy it down to there. Notice what happened. For the first interest payment, it was $63.75. And my principal payment was $12,194. For my second interest payment, it's less. And the reason it's less is because this number is reducing. This number here is reducing by $12,194 the first month. So therefore, when I figured out, well, the second payment is going to have all those same things, all those same variables, but the interest is going to be less because my current principal is less. Okay, my principal payment is going to be higher because this is all it's going to go to interest payment. Essentially, this payment of $18,567 less the interest means I got more going to principal. Okay, my formula here is C9 plus E9. C9 plus E9. When I copy this whole thing down, which is what I'm going to do, notice how it fills it in. Now before you look at everything, I want you to look down here at the bottom. I'm noticing that some homework isn't done this proper way. Notice how I've got, it looks like all my lines have gone. I had a line between 12 and 13, 16 and 17. They're gone. It's because I need to go down to here and hit my autofill. I've just autofilled all these ranges. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to fill without formatting. I don't want the range to be formatted the new way. I want it to be the old way. So I'm going to click on fill without formatting, and everything stays the same. So let's see what this shows. Okay. Notice how my interest payment is starting to decrease because my loan principal is getting smaller and smaller. Every time you make a payment, it doesn't go to the original amount. It says, okay, we're going to make a payment. That payment is going to be based on the current principal, not the original principal, but the current principal. So as we get this lower and lower, interest payment becomes lower and lower, principal payment becomes higher and higher. But my total payment never changes, and that's a good thing. Okay, so we'll take a look at this. I want to point this out to you. If this were your home mortgage, and you started off with $300,000 and you were down to 4.5% and you were going to pay 360 payments because it's a 30-year fixed mortgage. About the middle of it, you'll notice, right now, this loan, the bank's not making any money off this loan. They're making half what they were making when they originally made the money. This is the money the bank keeps. This is the money that goes to the principal. This is what the bank keeps. This is where they make their money. When you get down to the point where you're paying a half or a third of what the interest payments used to be, if you're a homeowner and it's your home mortgage, this is the time when the banks call you and say, hey, how would you like to refinance your house? Because they're losing money. Not losing money, but they're not making as much money as they were. So they want you to refinance. And they'll say, go on a trip, pay for your kids' college, blah, blah, blah. The only reason they want you to do that is so that they can get this number back up to that number. Don't fall for it. Don't do it. Okay? So, I want to change this because that shows decimal places and there's only one that's not, so I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to get rid of that. Okay? Final balance. What does it say to do there? In C29, this is going to equal C28 plus E28. Hopefully that's a 0, right? And it is. Whew, that's a good thing. Okay. I'm going to stop here. We'll come back and we'll do this cumulative principal and cumulative interest stuff, and we'll go from there.